A very good evening, teams. Welcome to Africa and Beyond Television Network. And this evening, let us try to take a look on very important matters. We have had a lot of issues happening in the nation of Zimbabwe, but one of the major questions is, can Advocate Nelson Chamisa and the opposition lead Zimbabwe? And my own response is that yes, Advocate Nelson Chamisa is ready to lead the nation of Zimbabwe. And I'm going to explain why I believe that he is really capable and above board to lead Zimbabwe. So, under President Advocate Nelson Chamisa, Zimbabwe will prosper. Under Advocate Nelson Chamisa, Zimbabwe will turn a page, and I'm going to prove to you the capabilities of this team. So, there is the importance of people like Advocate Mahere. These are very critical people, very important people who are needed at all costs. We need these people. This is Advocate Nelson Chamisa, Advocate Mahere, and other associates, the likes of Fana Comrade Ostalos, the likes of Fana Gift Mgano, who are the key individuals in the economic sector of the nation of Zimbabwe. If you take a look on how they're dealing with issues, you'd understand that these are people who are dealing with issues with wisdom, with knowledge, and with passion for the nation of Zimbabwe, with love for the nation of Zimbabwe. It's not because of mere talking. Advocate Fadzai right here gives advice to Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. This is what leadership does. Leadership comes with solutions, and she highlights that one of the key issues is for the Reserve Bank to hire communication team as soon as possible. Communication is key. Everything we do, we need proper communication. Without communication, then the message will never be understood. The reason why we need communication department to be effective is because we need a message to be understood by everybody. So you have to understand that people does have differences in terms of understanding. There are people who quickly understand. There are people who understand without explanation, but there are people who understand after explanation. There are people who need examples for them to understand. All those people, that is the duty and the role of a communication department, which is effective. And she's advising RBZ to have one. RBZ does not have that communication department, and it fails each and every time to foster confidence in time. It fails to give reliable communication. It fails to have accessible means of informing the public in advance in terms of key developments. For example, yesterday, the monetary policy was being launched. Nobody was sharing brief insights of the policy through the handles of RBZ, be it on Facebook, be it on YouTube, be it on X. They were supposed to have a team which was going to share all these very important issues. RBZ was supposed to make sure that the monetary policy was being live streamed, was being broadcasted on ZTV, was being broadcasted everywhere, such that people would be able to follow the monetary policy. It was supposed to be aired even on radio, but we didn't see that happening. People were actually scrambling to find that piece of information. It ended up as a hearsay more than anything else. So a 78-page document was then released through a link. But how many people are going to sit down and read 78 pages? Only a few individuals. How many people are going to understand 78 pages of a certain language which is being used? Just a few, which means it's very important for the communication team to then come and make sure that they give that information. So they left everything to social media trolls who became more important in terms of sharing what was happening. So she says your sensitization efforts have been inadequate. The public are confused. day one of the currency that you said would come into effect immediately, and banks, payment platforms, mobile networks, and businesses are flurry of confusion. You need to step up. There is nobody to explain what is really happening, why it is happening, and anything else, because there is no communication team. The use of all languages, adverts, address to key stakeholders. They don't have even they don't even have a social media manager. So 61% of the population lives in rural areas. The people with the disabilities, nobody catered for all those issues. There's no inclusivity in terms of policy making. So we went to ZTV, there was nothing. We went to various platforms, there was nothing. A lot of people rely on social media like YouTube, Facebook for these live streams, including X, for these live streams. And there was no feed whatsoever to make sure that everybody is getting that information in time. And, that is the problem. A vendor who is sitting or in front of a store need just a phone to be able to connect onto the internet and to live stream the policy and understand the policy. But that was not available, which will not understand what is really happening. She talks about using infographics because people will not read 78 to 100 pages. There is need to summarize key points in simple lay language that ordinary people understand. And there's need to avoid jargon in public communication. We saw this when Advocate Fadzai Mahere, the spokesperson of CCC, she was doing it, making sure that she explains in brief the position being taken by the opposition when what the opposition intended to do when it becomes government. And there were WhatsApp bots which were there to address frequent questions, to give updates, to give access to key documents and legislation. You see that all those issues need to be there. She also advised RBZ not to be defensive, so that a lot of people who are curious might have send through their questions and get responses to their concerns. It's not professional to see RBZ being gaslighting. We need to have a RBZ which is more professional and which creates platforms for engagement, and that is how you foster confidence in the people. So there is need for the governor to actually manage the optics. She says it's not good look to have the governor's first speaking engagement charged in USD when it's meant to explain and promote a new currency. And that is true. They were supposed to find a way of pricing this, even if it was not being priced in USD, in ZIG. They were supposed to use the Zimbabwean dollar because it was still in effect. They were supposed to charge exclusively in Zimbabwean dollar because it was still in effect. So by charging 100 in US dollars, what about the Zimbabwean dollars? What about other currencies which are in place? All those issues. I see that a lot of people would attack Advocate Fadzai Mahere and say, ZIG ranga risati ranyatsopinda. How was he supposed to use ZIG? But we had Zim dollar, which was still into effect. They were supposed to say, okay, ngari uye Zim dollar iroro, so that we can deal with these matters on an inclusive basis. And she talks about the very important point. There is need to avoid ambush. There is need to give fair notice. There is need to engage stakeholders before making policy. There is need to get feedback on realistic timelines for implementation so that you are not changing time frames a day after announcement. And it's key because it makes businesses plan. In business, planning is very critical, and you can only plan when you have information about what is happening, when you are given notice in time. That is when you can plan. So this is very important. What I like about this approach by Advocate Fadzai Mahere is that it gives a sense of the kind of government which we need to have. It shows that we have a leadership which understands what needs to be done. And when this kind of people forms a government, you will not have problems because they will put in place each and every person who can do what is best. So you would see that has been lacking in Zimbabwe. If we had no social media, it was going to be very difficult for people to understand what is really happening. That's the reason why you are seeing a lot of people coming in to try and dissect issues, to try and investigate of some things. And that it's not only RBZ, but also the Minister of Information. It has failed. The Minister of Information was quiet yesterday. Nobody cared about what was happening. Nick Mangwana, where was he? He was nowhere to be found. So all these issues are very critical and very important. But when we talk about Advocate Nelson Chamisa and this team, we would agree that this team is going to offer the best because everything, they were there, trying by all means to give their views point by point, following up and asking pertinent questions each and every time. But take a look on how the government was responding. The officials from the government were responding. They were actually attacking people who were raising concerns because they were duped in the past. And what changed to say they are not going to be duped in the future? Is it the face of John Panonietsa and John II? That is the only change we have seen so far. And that cannot translate to trust and confidence, which means there was need for them to come and try to explain things to the people without being defensive. That is another challenge. So Advocate Fadzai Mahere clearly understands the mandate they have to carry when they form a government. And if you take a look on several people, the likes of Professor Mugano, these are people who understand what needs to be done. President Nelson Chamisa clearly understands what needs to be done. Take a look on how the people with these people know what needs to be done. And if you have such kind of people, if you get into the government with such kind of people, then you are guaranteed success, you are guaranteed and warranted a successful stint in government. So this is my own observation, and I was taking a look on how Advocate Fadzai Mahere managed to give RBZ advice about what needs to be done to make sure that they don't crash this currency unnecessarily, because people do not understand what is happening. People need proper understanding of what is happening. And Advocate Fadzai Mahere highlights something very important, not only to RBZ, but to you inspire confidence. That is how you run things. Information is key. Communication is key. And without communication, then you are doomed. It is what it is. We'll continue to watch and see what is happening in the nation of Zimbabwe. Thank you very much for coming. Let us meet in other episodes as well as the podcast.